Welcome to The Human Element, presented by Whisk. I'm your host, Barb Bidan, and in each episode, I sit down with CHROs and senior HR leaders to explore how AI, innovation, and human insight are reshaping the future of HR. We'll explore how technology is reshaping leadership, strategy, and the role of HR by sharing candid stories, practical ideas, and strategic perspectives to help you shape the future. The Human Element is brought to you by Whisk, the leader in agentic HR and creator of Harper, the world's first AI HR generalist. Learn how Harper can resolve up to 80% of routine HR tasks autonomously. Learn more about Whisk at whisk.com. Today, my guest is Dawn Stastny, Chief Human Resources Officer at BelPak. And I wanted to get Dawn on the show because of the vantage point that she brings to this conversation. Dawn spent over a decade running her own HR consulting practice, Stellaris Group, working across more than 50 companies in a wide range of industries before stepping back inside as an operator. Now Dawn is building HR and compliance at BelPak, a company that came together just this past year when three established packaging businesses, Coregistics, Proven Partners, and Belvika, combined into one organization with more than 24 facilities across the US and Canada. That means that Dawn is doing workforce planning for a workforce that is almost entirely frontline and deskless on packaging lines across two countries at the exact moment that AI is changing what work looks like. Dawn also came up through compliance and risk, so she brings a different lens to this than most guests that we have on, one that's less about chasing the newest tool and more about how you make sound, defensible decisions about people when the ground is still moving beneath us. So we're going to dig into what surprised her, the frameworks that she's actually using, and what she would tell other leaders walking into this for the first time. Dawn, I'm so excited to have you on. Welcome to The Human Element.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Dawn, you have had an incredibly interesting arc in your career. You spent over a decade running your own HR consulting practice, working with a ton of different industries, and now you're back inside, building HR and compliance from the ground up in a newly formed company. Walk us through that path.
The combining of the three has been really fun from the standpoint of we were all very different. And so anytime you have a combination from an acquisition or a merger or something like that goes where you're mixing it, it's rarely the structure that fails. It's a cultural people thing that is your challenge because they're all very attached to their legacy business. They're very attached to the way they did it. And it's a pride thing. They're very proud of their entire organization and what got them there. And trying to move people to the next level is always fun. Trying to move them to the next level when they don't want to give up the old one is a little more fun. And then in the end, now we've had this extra twist of AI ending. It's almost the new industrial revolution, but I would say it's really more like the discovery of fire than that because it's moving so fast. That's changing the people element in such a drastic way. There's really no good basis historically for how you get there now. People look at it and say it's taking jobs, it's redesigning them. And we've had that happen along the way in history. But to do it at this, almost education and everything else is having to change. Every fundamental core to the framework is changing because we can't educate people now. And my daughter graduates in December, so I'm the firsthand knowledge of this, seeing it every day with her friends that are graduating, is that we're no longer educating them for here's your career. We're educating them almost, or they have to be educated in adaptability because we have to educate them to reinvent themselves and reinvent the work and reinvent the flow every day.
Oh, I mean, it's moving so fast. And yes, there are paradigms shifts in the past that we can point to, but none feels as big as this, I think, probably in both of our careers so far. It's quite exciting, but you have a ton going on with the business combination and this shift. What did running Stellaris Group and seeing dozens of companies up close, presumably probably working with multiple clients at the same time, what did it teach you that you couldn't have learned any other way?
We had 2 offices that were fully staffed, and we had things going on every day because in a small business, which is where we focused on, was that you don't need HR every day, but when you need it right now and you don't need to figure out how you're going to do it or who's going to do it, but they didn't have a need or the means really usually to have that full-time expertise on staff just at a, hey, could you run down to my office for a minute? They didn't have that. So that's where we filled in those gaps. But having the different industries, because we had legal partners, we had medical practices, we had industrial, you name it. The one thing I can say hands down, business by comparison is easy. People are messy. And I love that in that they're people. People are different. They're always different, and they make it complicated. It's not the work itself that's complicated. It's the human dynamic.
Right. I mean, when we jokingly say if the humans would just do what we needed them to do, then business would be easy. And which is the thing that makes our jobs really hard. And I'm guessing that the amount that you would see through Stellaris and running and working with multiple companies at early stages where they didn't need a full-time HR person, you would just see a lot in a short amount of time. I'm sure that's really equipped you for what you're now working through back in-house as an operator.
It does. I tell people all the time I need to write a book because if you told them these things, they would swear you're making them up. And you're like, no, that really happens. But no, really, it does. It happens all the time. And the thing is, that's the trick about AI that people have not recognized. The more AI and technology evolves, the more important and valuable the humanity skills matter. The difference in who will make it and who won't, and who will succeed and who won't, and how it's going to go, all really comes down to those humanity skills. And people call them soft skills. I refused. I've had this personal protest for about 8 years now that I refuse to call them soft skills because there's nothing soft about them. Anybody that's had to do the hard conversation or work and still show empathy at the moment, but then toe the line, but then feel for your person, there's nothing soft about that. Nothing at all.
No. And honestly, we've had to, as working in HR, right, we have to master those skills, but also help others get strong in those skills as well. And couldn't agree more that those are the skills that will stick, right? As AI continues to deepen its ability to help us, the pieces that make us human are the things that will differentiate, I think, between performers and companies, without a doubt. So I know, Dawn, that BelPak is not a brand new from scratch company, right? You brought together 3 established businesses from 3 legacy businesses. What was the actual moment, though, that you realized that you weren't just running HR? There was a lot of building from scratch that you need to do when you bring through 3 sets of policies, 3 sets of cultures, like 3 sets of norms, et cetera. When did you realize this felt more like a bill?
It really became the first 2 years of Coregistics under our current ownership, we ran autonomously. And so we had that first 2 years of learning how to work not in a family-owned business, but in a private equity-owned business. And to learn how that and it was hard for founders because founder syndrome is real. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's very real. To convince those people that, okay, it's not yours anymore. It is, but it's not. You're still responsible for it, but now you have a partner and you have to report certain things and do certain things. So that first 2 years went very well for us. It was a nice ease into it. But then the 2 acquisitions happened within 60 days of each other. So it wasn't like we had the benefit of, okay, here you are. Okay, now we're going to add this one. Okay, now we're going to add this one. No, it was like, here you go get it. And so that was really the moment. And it was in the summer of, so we had one in June and one in August. And by September, we were in full throes of how do we make it one? And there was a lot of change that went with that because Coregistics had a 12-year history at that point, and Belvika had a 30-year history at that point. And Proven Partners Group, they had a long history as well, but Proven Partners Group was a single location, whereas Belvika had 8 in Canada. So now you're talking cross-border. It's not just the U.S. anymore because Coregistics was 14 on the U.S. side. that was when it was really like, okay, this is complicated. And even at a higher level of our executives, it was, we just need one set of benefits. We need one payroll. Okay, but see, there's the laws that Canadian data flowing to the U.S., not optional. They store their data in Canada and you're not getting it here. 9/11 solved that for us with Patriot Act and some of those protections. Canadian data does not come to the U.S. anymore. And then you have Proven Partners Group, who was one location, who 24/7, one of our largest facilities. Is what we call a hyper facility. But they were used to being me, myself, and I. And they would make decisions based on Elgin. That's what we're doing. This is what we do. We're here. Okay, and if I said it once, I think I said it 100 times within September to December that year, because I was in that building every day, was you can't make decisions for 23 other locations. We have to do this as a whole. It's One BelPak, One BelPak. We hear One BelPak in our sleep now because it's different to try and get past those traditional mindsets of this is what they know and this is what made them successful. So they're going with that.
Completely. I've been through something similar at Crunchyroll with a business combination at scale. So I totally hear you. I'm actually going to pull us into the AI topic a little bit deeper because I know that this is a tool that obviously is helping you wrangle some of what you're encountering. I'd love to get into AI's impact on jobs and workforce planning, right? Because it gets talked about a lot at the strategic level, but you actually are living this also with a frontline, multi-facility, cross-border workforce, just like you described. What is something that has surprised you that you didn't expect until you were actually in the thick of it?
We have always recruited very traditionally. And I almost feel guilty saying that and going, shame on me. I should have moved probably sooner. Very traditional. You look at LinkedIn, you look at resumes, you post jobs, you do the things and you screen people, you're weeding people out manually in a system. And it's very traditional in its manner. And that worked for a long time. But when you start adding 24-hour facilities, okay, I have a shortage of mechanics. I need mechanics to work on that equipment, the packaging equipment that these people are working on the line. If the equipment's not working, those people aren't working, the product's not coming, bad things happen. If I need a mechanic on the third shift and my recruiter's not coming in till 9 a.m., he's gone to bed by now. I can't get him.
The old way doesn't work then, and the traditional way doesn't work. Yeah.
And you think about it and you think, I can get my recruiter to get up and come up here in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning and do a phone screen with a guy. But one, the guy wants to go to bed. He's not interested. Having AI do just even that front end screening, that first screen, the first pass of bucketing people into a system to say they have 100% of what you're looking for. They can work on all 5 machines. They can work on all 5 brand of machines, or they can work on it, but they can't diagnose it, or they can do PMs, but they can't. And bucketing them into, these are all the pieces of this has 100% of what you need, or this one has everything except this one thing. Can you live without that one thing? And having it do the screen, one, it solves a bias, and even unintentional bias of, I happen to like these particular kinds of candidates. I'm ex-military. I'm a huge fan of a military candidate, always, because I know the discipline that's involved in there. And even though I would not discriminate against someone for not being it, I'm going to have a bias to, they get the halo effect right out of the gate. I'm going to expect you to have discipline in these other things because you just came out of the military. You were working on tanks. You can work on a machine. What can we do here? And those kinds of things, it has no bias. And people are easily derailed when you talk to somebody and they don't necessarily want to answer the exact question, especially in an interview process, and they want to go a little sideways over here and derail you onto something else, and maybe you'll forget about that. AI does not forget. She will not, and the one we use is called Anna will not forget. And if you said, you know what, somebody's at my door, I'm going to have to come back to this, and I call back into that in 20 minutes to finish my interview, she's picking up where I left off. I'm not getting out of answering that question. And so that's amazing in that the quality of candidate that you will find and the volume. And then the human element comes into, okay, now I can watch that interview and say, okay, I see their face, I see their inflection, I understand the context of what that transcript says, and they have everything but this one thing. Okay, maybe I can say, we can make an offer and you've got 90 days to develop that skill. And this one last thing, we can teach you that. It just improves and opens up a whole new pool of people that you wouldn't have had because they went home and went to bed.
Without question, I've seen some really interesting tools, especially in the high volume frontline space, right? Where you have to hire quickly. You're hiring for specific skills and you need to make it happen because you have a shift happening where you need that person. And so as you're doing that, you've spent your career building governance and compliance frameworks, right? You talked about the additional degree of, honestly, fairness or lack of bias that AI can bring in this process. But now you are out there applying the sort of discipline, your own discipline around governance and compliance frameworks to workforce decisions around AI and AI tooling. What sort of decision framework are you actually using to guide yourself or guide your team on how to approach work with AI safely?
One, the thing that always from jump in the beginning of it, before it was really as heavy as it is now that everybody's on the topic, my fear was always on the compliance side of, you can't put just anything into AI. It's out there in the world now. What system are you using? How much data are you putting in there? And that's our data. That's our customers' data. You can't, and trying to make sure we had the proper fencing around what we were doing. And if you don't have your own tools, and not everybody can afford to have somebody make your own AI tools just for you, and they buy something off the shelf or they subscribe to a subscription that they didn't know they were going to use. And if they're using some kind of open forum that it's not protected and it's not indemnified, there's just a huge legal and compliance risk associated to that of don't put that out there. That was always my fear on the front end. Now, because we have partnerships we use Microsoft products, and so we have Gemini, we have the Microsoft things where it is indemnified, and as long as you use the tools that are in-house, your data is secure. That's less of a concern, but you still have, people think AI is making decisions for you. No, AI is giving you information, and you're still responsible to figure out, is the information right? Did it hallucinate? Did it make it up? Did it just infer something on its own? You're still responsible for figuring that piece out, which is hard for some people because they just want to go fast. And fast is great, but only if it's accurate. They always ask me, do you want it right or do you want it right now? Yes. Yes, I do. Both. Right now. I'm a C and a D. So I want it right, but I want it right now. That can be its own challenge as well, but making sure that people understand the humanity side of credibility, good judgment and discernment and ethical decisions is still at the core, which is why I say humanity becomes more valuable and more important the more technology moves.
Completely. And we have talked about a lot on the show that humans still decide, right? AI makes those decisions easier, faster, etc. But the human decision-making absolutely comes into play. And so judgment, discernment, etc. become increasingly important. So now shifting a little bit more to the human side of things, the employee experience. So let's talk about the humans that are actually living through this change in the work that you're doing. What has the employee experience been like as it relates to AI within your business? And what are the ways that you and your team are intervening to make sure that you're continuing to make that employee experience even better?
I have been extremely vocal about, I had a differing opinion than a lot of more senior. The higher you go up the food chain and the more senior level people become, their understanding of AI and what it will do for efficiency and productivity is a little bit different than the view at a much more operational level. And I've been very vocal of, if you can get AI and an agent to do the work and come up with, I'm going to save 6 hours a day at a certain level, and not to bash finance people because I have all the respect in the world for them. That's the one job I want no part of. I'll take people over numbers any day. They always look at it and go, okay, we could have somebody absorb that 2 hours and disperse that 2 hours. And that's where we're going to get our efficiency. That's where we're going to get our productivity. I'm very vocal about not. And I think our workforce is appreciative of that I'm such the proponent of my answer, especially with the HR team, because that was where it originally started with us of let's do a pilot with recruiting and see if we can make this better. My answer is never, where do I send that 2 hours? My answer is, okay, you've got 6 hours now. What did we not get to that we wanted to do that we couldn't do because there's only so many hours in a day? How do you turn that 6 hours into more efficiency, more productivity, do a better, go deeper, go harder, go faster in those things? And using that, I believe wholeheartedly, that's where the real productivity and efficiency for even a margin and everything else that matters to the higher level, that's where it's really going to come from. It's not going to come from we took that 6 hours and we're going to cut ahead, because the person that taught the machine to do all those things and the person that did all those things and knows what to do with it and why you did it to begin with and how it works and all of that legacy historical knowledge, you cut that head, you lose all of that. Okay, great. You got the workflow. What do you do with it?
I love that approach, right? You're giving the time saved back to the team member who's actually helped use AI, right, to create efficiency in their workflow using AI to save themselves time. They've earned some time back. What are they going to do with it? I'm curious what the best thing that has been an unlock, like the best thing your team has gotten to as a result of having some time back to get to some things that they just were not getting to before.
More of us have time to interview and make sure we have the right people than before, because we can hammer down on, we can go through an exorbitant amount of resumes and skills and criteria, because you're looking at skills-based hiring these days really being very key. And especially when you're looking at frontline and operators and things of that nature, and machine operators, mechanics and blenders and mixers and people that have a very specialized skill set, to be able to get to, okay, these are the ones. This is the 20 we want to take the next step with. And to be able to split it among all of us and go, okay, we want more hands on it instead of a recruiter. Really, we don't have to wait as long to get the person we want. For him to get 20 of them, it gets narrowed to 20. He can get through that. He can rank them. We can go, okay, these need this level of people. These need those. And you're moving at such a much more accelerated pace, but it's still human at that point. You've just weeded out all of the, and I hope I don't hurt anybody's feelings and offend anybody. Every school teacher that doesn't want to go back to the classroom after June, that has applied to the job that they really don't want, but please don't make me go back to the classroom. And if anybody that does recruiting will know where that comes from. For whatever reason in the summer, the teachers, they flood the job.
Anyone who does executive coaching around careers, as I do, also know that. It makes me sad every time, but I have talked to a lot of teachers, and that's a whole other topic, but it is a thing. And this is the time of year where you see it, and teachers spending the summer trying to figure out how to do something different, which maybe says a lot about how we've structured that, for sure.
Well, education is the one thing that has not moved. If you look at the way we treat medicine, look at the way we treat building cars, look at the way we've automated all kinds of things. The one thing that has not changed in this country is education. They are still sitting at a desk with the things exactly like they were 60 years ago. It's the one thing that has not changed.
Which is scary, since that's sending the next generation into the workforce, right, that we will interact with.
Yes, it has everything to do with what we're talking about with this workforce planning, and institutions having workforce hubs and institutions that teach a different way and teach a different set of skills, because the jobs are going to have to be redesigned with AI. It's not that we'll actually have more jobs, I believe, than less jobs. They'll just be different jobs. So people will have to be upskilled and reskilled in different categories, but their knowledge base will be there. I think the real challenge, and I'm going to stick it on a calendar and set a reminder just because I got to know I'm competitive with myself as much as I'm competitive with other people, is I think 2031 is the year to watch. Because there will be no middle managers. We are going to have a middle management crisis in 2031. because of all of the entry-level jobs that have been cut out by AI in 2026 and 2027. Those people that have 4 years of experience and have come up through it and learned it and know it, and they're ready to take those middle manager roles. You and I have to plan a date, Barb, for 2031 to have a
check in.
Where is it? Yeah. Where did it go? Because I think it's going to be a management crisis. Because if you look generationally as well, Generation Z, they don't want to be supervisors. They have a gig economy mindset. They want to be responsible for themselves. They want to set the boundaries. People think it's because they're lazy. It's not they're lazy. They grew up with us who had our phone at the table. We missed the recital. We missed this. And they're setting boundaries that we did not. And good on them. I've had to work myself to that, having a Z, but I have 2 millennials as well. So I have kids that are 39, 38, and 21.
Which is great training ground, actually, as a parent for the workforce, right? And working with an intergenerational workforce as well. And I wanted to ask a question about the actual teams that you work with, right? When you are working with a frontline workforce, I'm curious if any sort of AI innovation has come to the way that the business actually runs. And then where I'm curious from an HR standpoint is how you have managed communicating change to a frontline workforce that's not a desk-based workforce and that you're needing to bring the frontline teams through things. How has that differed compared to what those of us working with primarily desk-based workers?
We're really on the front end of an entirely new set of capital expenditures where we're automating a lot of the equipment. And just the idea, mechanics, because that seems to be the easy example for everything these days, is because they have such a specialized skill. And these are expensive pieces of equipment. Even the old ones, our old equipment, can run up in the millions of dollars for a piece of equipment. But if you're going to automate something, now it has the computer in it and AI can do a lot of that automation. A mechanic may or may not be able to know how to work that panel. If you've got an old school mechanic, he can fix all kinds of things. He can fix any piece of mechanical equipment, but it's not mechanical anymore. It's computer driven. And if you go to a copier now versus, and I think for most of us, when we look at it, you look at it and you go, okay, a copier today versus a copier when I started using the copier. I remember when Lotus 123 came out, so I'm that old. It's very different. And now you can push it and it'll tell you where the paper jam is. Whereas it changes everything. And so I think where we're going to have it, we're on the front end of that, but I think where we're going to have our real challenge is in skilling those operators to not assume that it's a mechanical problem. It could very well be the computer. It could be and the new equipment will be very different to them in that they're not going to open a panel and see equipment. They're going to open a panel and it's going to be a computer brain. And that's a different animal.
So it turns out you've got the same reskilling and upskilling issue that all the rest of us are facing, regardless of the industry that we work in. Just that the skills that you're tackling with a mechanic might be different than the skills that we're tackling, but the skills that you need to do your job tomorrow will be different than the skills you've needed in the past is the bottom line there. And it's something that we're all focused on right now. So let me bring us home here with a question around advice for those leaders who maybe are a little earlier in their journey of starting to adopt AI from an HR perspective. What's some practical advice that you would give to a peer and the industry to help them accelerate?
I would say partner with your local community. Like we have gone out of our way. I have a fantastic HR manager in one of my locations that she has gone to the community college and she has partnered with them on internships because all our old school mechanics are going to need some of these younger, fresh out of school mechanics that know how the computers work to help them to even internally develop. Because if you start talking about, we can't just bank on people coming with the skills. Instead of consuming talent, we have to develop talent. And partnering with your community, because the local community college, you partner with them, they're going to give you the best students that you've got. You're going to have a relationship with them. They can refer people to you. Well, ours even has a grant that they pay for the first 2 semesters and then we pay for the 3rd semester. And then these people have already learned all of our equipment, know our people. They're used to coming to us. It's almost like Cheers. Norm, coming to your space every day, you're going to have a better chance of hiring them fresh out of school because they know what they're doing. They know the equipment, they know the people, they've developed relationships there. I would say get in front of that. Tackle it from this is not to replace anybody. This is to make your life a little easier so you can do the other things that we never get to that we want to. The fun projects, especially HR, the fun things, the extra data analysis to go, what if we change this plan or what if we change this program? But you never get to, you just let it ride because right now I got to get a 5,500 done. I got to get this done. I got to get that done. So that's going to have to back burner for a minute. You can bring it forward and move into that if you plan right on the front end and you adopt it. So don't have your people be afraid to adopt it because they're worried they're not going to have a job. They're going to work themselves out of a job. There have been so many large companies and conglomerates that have done that and sent out the 31,000 person email. Ours is more, we want to make more time to do the fun things and give them a shot on the front end to go, if I could get you 2 hours of your day back, what project would you pick for yourself that you want to work on that you never get to? And let them work on the things that are going to get them there. Because as much as people leave for money and other things, I promise you, growth, especially the younger generations, growth and they're being able to contribute and develop is far more important than people give it credit for. They don't jump and change jobs every 2.5 years because change is just what they do. They don't particularly like change. They jump and change in 2.5 years because they stopped growing, they stopped learning, everything got comfortable, and they didn't have an opportunity or see a path to the next thing. If you're giving them that time to say, I'm going to get you 2 hours of your day back. You can make an agent. Let's do this. That'll give you 2 hours. If you got 2 hours, what do you want to do with that 2 hours?
Completely. It's a major tool to overcome resistance, I think, to the changes that we're facing with AI as well. A huge unlock there. Guy could go on, but I'm going to take us to the lightning round. Just a couple of quick hit bits of advice here. What is one tool or resource that you would tell every HR leader to check out this quarter?
I would say Claude or Fountain. Fountain is amazing for the recruitment piece. That front end, it's incredible. And they have different agents already built out that you can do a trial. You can do a trial for 90 days and decide, do I love it? Do I not love it? Does it work for me? Does it not work for me? And get your toes in there. But Claude is probably the most versed that I've used in what we do to be really efficient at getting that time back to go, now I'm going to work on something that's of more human value and that's going to use my personal skill set and intellectual capacity that AI can't do. I'm going to automate some paper over there.
Awesome. Let me give you one more. What is the best piece of advice from your years of running Stellaris that you actually think still applies completely today?
Never, ever say, okay, I've seen it all now, because someone will top it. Every time. The human element, never underestimate people. And I told the COO this morning, I know you didn't serve in the military and I did. And one of the first things we learned in the military is the most dangerous person in the world is the one that has nothing to lose. Make sure your people are seen, are heard. And there is no amount of the other stuff that will get you past people. You can have all the inventory, equipment, CapEx you want. Without the people, you got nothing. And so it doesn't matter what you buy, what you sell, what you have, your inventory, your stock, your process. Without the people, it's not happening. And those people at that level, the front line, they have to know that you care, that they're valued, that they're appreciated, that they can tell you things, and that trust. That's what you got to have, or it's none of it will work.
Dawn, let me take us home here with, I try to capture some notes as we're talking. It's been an enjoyable conversation today. I captured two things that I want to share with the audience. One is your reminder that soft skills are not soft. So I liked that you called them humanity skills. The more AI evolves, the more that humanity skills matter. It's just a little different twist on something we've talked about before on the show. So I liked that framing. And then the second big idea here, I think, is that giving the team members an opportunity to pick what they do with the time freed up from AI-based efficiency, right? So where AI creates efficiency, ask your team, what can be unlocked? What are we not getting to today that we can give them time back to do versus creating efficiency with AI and then kind of cutting those hours? If we give those hours back to the business, what can we do that we were not getting to previously? And so I always leave guests with the final word. What is one piece of advice that you would give to viewers to think about on the rest of their drive home today? So our HR peers and counterparts listening to the show.
No one likes things to happen to them. Even if they don't have full control over what's happening, and AI is the prime example of none of us have control over AI. It's a wildfire. It's going. But to that point of giving them a choice in what they do with that, if it's going to happen to you, at least let them participate in it happening to them. Don't just have things happen to people. No one wants it to happen to them. They want it to happen with them. So if you involve them, that's where you're going to get your adoption. Your adoption is not coming from an edict and here it is and we said and you got it. It's going to happen with here's what we can do with this, and let them feel that they have some part of control over how it's going to happen, not just they wake up one day and their world has been changed by AI and someone else.
Everybody, all included, all in on AI transformation is the way to go. I've enjoyed our conversation today, Dawn. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I've really appreciated it.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on The Human Element, presented by Whisk. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow The Human Element wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Barb Bidan. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.